Shabbat. It took twice to get me started. It's one of those days. Shabbat Shalom. I'm Robert Barr.
I'm Aya Pillsbury.
And we are thrilled to be sharing this Shabbat service with you here on ourjewishcommunity.org. We're going to begin with a reading. I want you to start.
Put away the pencil and the paper. Put away the notebook and the keys. Set aside the shovel and the hammer. Rest. For this interval, no buying, no selling, no working, no laboring, no straining, not living in the past, and not planning for the future.
This is a time for joy and for mirth. We are here alive to rejoice in another Sabbath, another opportunity to be together, grateful for family and friends. With no distractions, we touch and are touched, the great gift of the Sabbath. So we're glad you're here at ourjewishcommunity.org. This is 6 o'clock. We're streaming live. Hopefully some of you are chatting with one another. I do want to say that if you hear noise in a little bit emanating from around us, there's a reason. Many of you know that ourjewishcommunity.org is housed here at Congregation Beth Adam in Loveland, Ohio. And for our 14th year, we have been hosting Israeli Scouts, Girl and Boy Scouts in Israel. They're not divided that way. They're just simply Scouts. And they come to Cincinnati to actually go to a Boy Scout camp. And they just arrived in Cincinnati late Wednesday night.
Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah, so yesterday they toured the city, and tonight they toured the city again. They did different kinds of things. And now they're coming to have a potluck dinner and a Shabbat service. So if you hear sort of noise in a little bit, it's both the Israeli Scouts and their host families and adults who are involved in helping them come in. So I just wanted to say that proviso. It lets you know, too, that we're here at Congregation Beth Adam. For 14 years, we've been doing the Scouts. For 36 years, Congregation Beth Adam has been a community of people who's been giving voice to a very bold, dynamic Judaism that recognizes that what we believe matters. What we say matters. Religion, philosophy is the lens which allows us to look at the world, interpret the world, to make decisions about how we're going to interact with the world. It's our map. And just like we wouldn't use a map of the 14th century or the 1st century, we can't use the religious framework that our ancestors of the 1st century, that was actually Iron Age century period. We need to create our own. We have new science, new understandings, and information isn't to be ignored. To ignore information, I believe, is irresponsible. If we know something about whether it's global climate change, the loss of nature, about medicine, and we ignore that and don't act on it, it's an irresponsible. And it's irresponsible not to actually bring it into our Jewish experience. So that's what we've been doing here at Congregation Beth Adam. And in doing so, we've rewritten liturgy to reflect that reality. Moreover, we then recognized about 8-9 years ago the value of technology. That the communities are shaped in many, many different ways. It's not just being in a room together. We can connect as friends and family over the internet. We can use this technology in different ways and experience something new and to begin to build community and know that we're part of something larger than ourselves, that we're part of a worldwide community. So our Jewish community allows us to do that. So we're glad you're here. Chatting right now. Great. Sam's watching the computer. Some of you will be online later watching the service in the archives. That's wonderful, too. We recognize that the notion of Shabbat, when we pause, is personal. It depends on our schedules or opportunities. So we're glad you're here whenever being here is here.
Yeah.
Concept. Okay, we're going to continue with our candle lighting.
And on this Shabbat, we create our moment in time. We pause to reflect upon yesterday's and tomorrow's, to renew our ties with our families and our friends, to restore our energies, and to refresh our spirits. As the sun descends and shadows lengthen, the distractions of the day give way to the stillness of night. It's time now for us not to see with our eyes, but with our hearts and our minds. As the day gives way to evening, it's time for us to welcome Shabbat.
The candles. stand before us waiting to be lit. We recall our ancestors. We too seek to dispel the darkness and banish the cold, to bring glowing softness, warmth, and safety into our homes. May the dancing flames of these candles kindle warmth within our hearts, wisdom in our minds, passion in our spirits. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch ha'or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch ha'or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. So we're glad you're here with me and with Aya. And what we're going to talk about, because this is sort of for us, as rabbis, the congregational year. So there's multiple years, right? In Jewish tradition, there are 4 years.
Yes, there are 4 heads of the year.
Right. And I think in real life, there are multiple years. So there's the school year. Mm-hmm. There's the congregational year, which is very close to the school year, but not exactly parallel. There's our birthday year.
There's anniversary years in relationships.
Yeah, anniversary, that's right. Fiscal year.
Yeah.
Tax year.
Job years.
So and so this is marking, so we're talking about a year right tonight. Mm-hmm. So Aya began working at Congregation Beth Adam about this time.
Yeah, in May of last year, so.
Wow. That's
yeah.
crazy. It's a little bit over a year, so we're a little bit late.
Yeah, a little bit late, except this was last year. You were out of town at this time of the year, so this
did you
was.
Miss me?
I did.
You
So this was really when it super started, in the sense of this when the Israeli Scouts was the first big program I did by myself after starting at Beth Adam.
Oh, that's right. That was I forgot.
So now the Scouts are back today. So I think that's why both of us were feeling like it was extra anniversary.
That's right. And they had the advantage we have tonight is they actually have been in town and they actually have slept a little bit.
Yes.
You got them the night.
I got them literally 5 minutes after they'd been to the airport. They'd gone to their host families, dropped off their stuff, and then came. So it was. They
stared at you.
They did. 14-year-olds. They got that stare.
They got a down pat.
It's very impressive.
It's cross-cultural, too.
It is.
That was interesting, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where it's 14-year-olds, but they all have that same look.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me something.
Yeah.
And then
Make me interested.
Make me interested and do it in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Right? So it's exciting. And what I wanted to just spend a little time talking about was reflecting on the experience, because you came to Beth Adam through a whole sort of a journey, from LA to University of Chicago to Hebrew Union College to being doing reform services, and then you encountered this place.
It's true.
And I was just sort of, what? Ed, you're going to stay with us, right? So
yes.
For those of you, so
which is very exciting.
Going to be here for another whole year. We have Shabbat services on OJC and high holidays and things like that, and our videos and resource guides. But what's been the experience? Because, for me, just, I was at HUC and I was sort of moving into this, but it was something that, it was a journey that I had already sort of begun and coming to Beth Adam. But yours was so different, and then somebody said, hey, what about Beth Adam? And you said, well, what? Give us some insights on what good, bad, and the ugly. Only the good.
So actually, I feel like my journey with Judaism and with Beth Adam has been a really great reminder about how much things change. That as long as you're committed to what feels right and what feels nurturing and energizing, that commitment might not change, but what that looks like actually changes way more than I ever expected it to be. So I decided I wanted to be a rabbi when I was 12.
12?
Yes. It was during the Iraq War, and I was really depressed about all of the terrible things people were doing in the name of religion. And so I was like, I bet you could do really awesome things instead. So I came to the rabbinate wanting things to be different. I wanted to change things. I thought Judaism was a lot more powerful than something that should be stuck behind 4 walls of the synagogue. Except I was raised in a very traditional reform environment that said that none of this was real, but let's be obsessed with God all the time. And it only sometimes felt incongruous. Like, I still remember when I was 17 sitting in the sisterhood Shabbat service. So all of my awesome middle-aged women mentors were leading the service. And I was sitting there with my mom and all of her friends and was just like, everything they're saying is meaningless. What's the point of any of this? And I was pretty sure that religion and God was a human construct to begin with. Like, that wasn't a problem. But I loved being in services. I loved the liturgy. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, why, like, spending all my energy on this just seemed like such a waste. And I burst into tears and left. And because I had just learned how to drive, could not successfully my mom had an Astro van, and I could not successfully back out her car from the temple parking lot, so I had to come back into services and ask her to come out and fix the car, and then I went home, and she got a ride with someone else.
That was the most, and it was
devastating.
But that, you were 17, but somehow you said, okay, I'm going to give it another shot. Because it's interesting, I mean, you got disillusioned, disenchanted, but you said, there's something still there.
So I was teaching religious school at the time, and it was 5th grade. I still one of my favorite age groups, and really was excited about religion as meaning making. And at the time, I didn't have the words for it, and just kind of pushed my issues with God aside, and was like, well, that must be my issues. If it's a human construct, there's no reason why it couldn't still be meaningful, blah, blah, blah. Like, everything, the world is arbitrary anyway. What is green? You know? But then through college and rabbinic school, really, the more I learned Hebrew, the more problematic it's felt, because I always loved the Hebrew. I always loved the poetry. I thought it is really beautiful, a lot of what gets said. Mm-hmm. But as a feminist and taking words really seriously, a lot of what we say in traditional Reformed services also is antithetical to everything I value. And the more I was able to realize it, the more heartbreaking it was. So finding Beth Adam was actually like, there's a way, because I actually kept trying to leave rabbinic school because I take religion really seriously and the rabbinate really seriously, and I didn't want to be doing this just because I've always wanted it.
I think it's that notion that you take it seriously, because I think a lot of
and that's what I liked about here. Like Beth Adam and our Jewish community, I've never been in a community that takes Judaism as seriously as we do here.
Which is strange, because I think oftentimes the knock on us, if people,
totally.
right? And we talk about this all the time. People, they don't really care about it. We're probably more invested, and it was interesting, because some of the rabbinic students we were talking one day, actually, rabbinic students who've worked here recognize we probably talk more concretely and our kids more seriously about theology and about God, exploring what that means. And we talk about the religious enterprise and religious identity and blended identities on a regular basis, probably more intensely than other institutions. And yet the answer, because we don't do traditional prayers and we're not overly ritualistic, people go, oh, they're not nearly as religious as we are.
Yeah.
Right?
Except, what does it mean to be religious? You know? Like, to me, religion is a system, it's how do you, of making meaning out of the world, and what counts as meaningful. And what was so frustrating to me about a lot of the Judaism I experienced before Beth Adam is that we have such a rich heritage, and there's so many really smart things that rabbis have said or people have argued against, or stories, things that come out. And when we just gloss over the really ugly parts, I think we're doing them a disservice, because life is really hard and really ugly and really beautiful. It's both. And if it was just ugly, it would almost be easier.
Right.
But so I think, for me, it makes me work harder, because I can't just be like, oh, what are we going to do for Passover? Oh, whatever I did last year, it's what we're supposed to do. You know, what are we going to read for the high holidays? Like, we had to choose what Torah portion we're reading based on what kind of messages we want to talk about, what we want people to think about, engage with, as opposed. And, you know, there's great things to be said for just finding new things in the old.
Right.
But
at some point, you can. I mean, I've been a rabbi a long time, and you can read the same story at some point. At some point, you really do go back to the beginning because there's even if there's 70 different faces to Torah in 70 years, you've touched them all. But there really aren't, and I think the idea of just looking at the Torah portion. But it must be awkward too a bit about like some of your colleagues at HUC who don't know Beth Adam and wondering,
Yeah.
are you okay?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of fear with change and things we don't understand. And, there was a lot of people who said Reform Judaism wasn't Judaism. And there are people who like to make the claim about Beth Adam, too, and our Jewish community. And my history professor, Dr. Zola, who teaches American Jewish history, always says, only time will tell.
Right.
The history is written by the winners, and what's the point of religion if it's not forcing us to be better people and struggle with our values and who we are? And as long as we're making the world a better place, like, I don't really care if anyone agrees with me or not,
Right.
because being authentic and finding my own voice, my own power, and using that with other people to co-create something. I don't want to hand my voice to someone else just because we
To
disagree.
advocate it.
Yeah.
And say this is
Just because we disagree on what Judaism is. They can have their opinion, I can have mine, but we're both stronger, richer, better people if we can have that conversation.
Right, and it's interesting because I agree with you, and I think my concern, I guess what keeps me awake at night, I suppose some could say, is I want to make sure that the Judaism that's passed down is of value. I don't, and it's interesting, because I dropped out after my bar mitzvah, and I went back, and I thought, God, Judaism has something there, and and it is interesting and it's textured, but it isn't. And what happens is oftentimes, and I think what has happened, and we see it in modern Judaism, traditional, common ritual, liturgy has become what is defining Judaism, Judaism is so much broader than it and more complex and it's more philosophical. And even those who use traditional languages sometimes were really radical, but they were bound by the language they could use. They were pre the Renaissance, they were pre the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment, and the language that they had and the reference points were limited. But they were pushing the envelope, and today we become overly, I have to say, pediatric. It's become very focused on just doing simple things for kids so that there's more Jewish kids, but there's no value set. I mean, Jewish identity to me and religion to me is about what do we believe? Why do we believe it? How do we make the difficult choices? The hope is that the conversations we're having here, and we've had a lot of conversations over the years, me and other people, we've talked about lots of different things. The goal is these conversations are coming out of a religious place, and that in some point in our life we're going to deal with more challenging issues, and these conversations have helped inform us, helped us to grow, given us words.
And I think it's even more than that, that it's so and maybe this is a gendered statement. I'm a woman. I've always identified as a woman and have a lot of the classic issues that women grow up having in Western society. So I'm going to say, I feel like it's really easy to feel guilty about the world, and that religion can actually, sometimes a lot of the traditional language is actually harmful, and in the sense of creating opportunities to feel guilty and blaming the victim and saying that natural social order is the way things should be and because God wants it this way, et cetera, et cetera. And I think sometimes in liberal circles, we fall into the same traps without necessarily intending the metaphor to do the same thing that it does. And so it's not just that traditional language is safe and keeps us there, that no, actually, sometimes the traditional language is actually a detriment.
What's limiting? Well, I mean,
it's hurting people.
Right. Well, the thing that comes to mind is sort of just an easy example. Is I remember when friends of mine and wanted to change male language to non-gender. So it's as simple as chairperson or chairman, and people said, "Oh, that's silly. What does it matter if we call him a chairperson or a chairman?" Yeah. Right. But if you're a woman,
Mr. President.
Right. Well, that was going to be interesting.
Yeah, which is its own other thing.
But if the person leading the meeting is supposed to be a chairman. That's defining, and men would say, oh, but that doesn't, it really includes you.
Yeah, and except if I go around saying, when one does something, when she does, oh, that was meant to include you, Rabbi Bar.
Right,
Didn't
right.
you know?
And they got and they people get upset. Language does. See, I'm sorry. I think we got folks coming. Okay, so language is important.
Yeah.
It is the frame, it's the lens through which we see something. So, and I think this deals too is even when people want to give each other comfort, oftentimes, particularly in a tragedy, they'll say things that they intend to, they think is comforting. I remember, our dog died. Some of you may have saw this last week. My son Simi was on it. I remember when our dog died, or one of our dogs. We had multiple dogs, and someone wanted to comfort, Simi and say, well, the dog's in a better place. So Simi said, so the dog's alive somewhere else, right? Isn't that
or with me, was it like, what did I do wrong that didn't make my home a good enough home for them?
Right.
How could I have,
Language matters when we talk about it.
And if we want language to matter when we talk to each other, which it definitely does, then I think it should be all of the time, not just sometimes.
Right.
Because otherwise, how do you teach it?
And religious language, I think, adds weight to it because we use it ceremonially. We use it at moments of grandeur. We use it at moments, one of the things religion does, I believe, is take a moment and make it into a mountain.
Totally.
Right? Isn't that it?
It's one of the best parts.
Right? Isn't that? We take something that's very simple, a wedding. Right?
Bar mitzvah. I actually was thinking of the bar and bat mitzvahs that we just had.
Oh.
And so at 13, puberty, it's an awkward time. And yet we have this moment in Judaism, this opportunity for a child to study something they've never studied before, to accomplish something they could not have done without working for an extended period of time and asking for help.
Right.
And then they get up and do it in front of their community. Right. And yet, so much of the time, it doesn't necessarily reflect the person who's standing there. And yet we just had two, back to back, week to week. Each was completely different, reflected the family, reflected the student, because they chose what they wanted to study.
Right. And we blew up the moment. The moment became bigger than it was, and that makes it more special. And I think that's the power of religious language, is we use it in important occasions. And that's why, for me, using the right language in the right place does say something. It frames the conversation. And as religious leaders, we're going to be invited to do things that non-religious leaders aren't invited to do.
But we are not the only people who can blow up a moment. You, in fact, are sitting there wherever you are, at home, at work, on the go, and you're blowing up a moment right now. So all it takes is that mindfulness. And religion is a nice excuse. Shabbat, maybe I should stop. But Shabbat can happen whenever we want it to happen. And that doesn't mean that it has to happen less. It actually means it could happen more.
Right. And even using blown up, is that a good phrase anymore? We should move away to making a moment bigger than it is.
That's
true. we really violent, right?
If you're going to think about it, you think about it, and you're right. Shouldn't say that. That's not Shabbat.
Right, and we're making moments larger than they are, transforming small moments to big moments, and this is where language is really and it some people can poo-poo it, but I think it really raises our understanding of how we explore things, what metaphors are considered normative and not normative, and that religion, so when we get up, and what I mean is, yes, you can create moments too, but the reality frequently is we're going to be invited to open a city council meeting or the Congress, if we're lucky, or the inauguration of the president, which frames it, and it gives it a moral weight. That's why this language is so important, and quite frankly, that's why I think our Jewish community becomes important, because like-minded people around the world realize, wow, there's a way to do this. Because I think a lot of times we think we're really alone.
Yeah, and we can come up with new ways together, too. So just because we have one way right this second doesn't mean we're done.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah, we keep on going. Well, this is great. I'm glad you're here. Glad we're finishing the first year. The scouts are coming. The time is passing. So we're going to continue with our challah reading. So we're going to do the challah reading with...
As the fingers of the challah intertwine, so do we join hands in our common humanity, sharing the fruits of our labors. We cherish that which has been created through human effort, for it is through the work of our hands, the strength of the human spirit, the vision of our minds, that our dreams are woven into the tapestry of time. We celebrate the accomplishments of yesterday and today, anticipating the possibilities of tomorrow. May the sharing of this challah strengthen our bonds with others who walk upon this earth. Baruch Amal Kapenu, blessed is the work of our hands. Baruch Chazon Ha'adam, blessed is the vision of our minds. Baruch Lechem Ha'aretz, blessed is the bread of the earth.
And then if you have some juice or some wine, feel free to join me. We celebrate the fruit of the vine and the bounty of nature as we lift the cup and sip from it. For we are part of nature, which gave us birth and continues to sustain us. Even as we depend upon nature, so do we influence its course. The search for understanding, we've gained the knowledge to shape our world. Guided by the best of human wisdom, the compassion of our spirit, we accept the responsibility which rests upon us. May the taste of the wine or juice upon our lips stir within us a reverence for nature and a respect for human endeavor. Bruchim hachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim hachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. L'chaim.
Chaim.
Woo. Juice. Woo.
Every week.
It's juice. I mean, there's a lot of juice up and the wine's gone bad. So it has been a remarkable year. I can't believe it's been a full year. The Scouts mark that we've been able to share Shabbat together. And it's great. It's been a wonderful year. We've had an exciting year. I has been here a lot, which began with some members of Beth Adam sharing Shabbat services, members, professional folks from the Jewish community of Cincinnati, other rabbis, Reverend Dittmar, my son, my brother. It's been great. Shabbat has been for me. I hope you've enjoyed this year of Shabbat services as much as I have. One of the things that has been particularly exciting for me is the chance to learn. I've learned from I've learned from other folks, because the nice dynamic here is the conversation within a framework of exploration, civility, understanding, and trying to wrap our minds around complex ideas in a great space with you as part of that. I'm saying it that way because this will be the last service until August 19th. I'm going to post one last candle lighting that'll be actually on a loop because I've got some traveling. I got quite a bit of traveling to do this summer, and it's been our custom to sort of close down for the summer. It's a chance to refresh. We have even only one or two bricks and mortar experiences. So what I'm hoping that you're going to do is, those of you who like chatting with each other, connect with each other, find ways to do that. I know many of you have become friendly online. Talk to each other. Maybe you can even set up a Google Hangout on your own for some moments, or leave messages to one another on ourjewishcommunity.org. I know when I get back from Israel, where I'm going to have stuff to talk about. Reverend Dittmar and I, I'm going to hope to take some photo essays on the road with her so that we can bring them back and splice them in, and then we'll try to get her to talk some more. I actually have services. I'm going to be interviewing some rabbis that will be posting during the coming year Shabbat services. So check out, in the meantime, if you like Shabbat services, go back to one of the old ones you like. They're in the archives. We're not going to take them down until we start again in August. So take a look at if there's a service you missed. Just scroll down. Just go down on the page and you'll find other ones. So you can do that. You can do a candle lighting on your own. Just pause and reflect and think. You can go back and look at the ourjewishcommunity.org website. Blogs. I had a blog that we reposted from last year about Pride Month. Look at that. There's other blogs there. There are those essays by the interviews we've had with different people, and their blogs that people wrote about each one of those. Take a look at that. Listen to my podcast.
And we're always looking to, also, if you are someone who likes to write things down and let us put your thoughts together and let us know what you think, we would also love to know, so we can improve and change things and post things, and other people can benefit too.
So you can always write us at rabbi@ourjewishcommunity.org. So have a great summer. Have a safe summer. If you're in a sunny environment, use sunscreen. Hydrate, drink plenty of water. That was my son. Last month he was worried about me going to Israel. Sent me last week, said, Dad, you gotta hydrate. That's the biggest mistake, people. As a medic up in the mountains, people don't drink enough water. He just bought like 2-liter thermoses before he went back, because he always carries water in his car. And his mom, my wife, decided he needed a clean one.
Nice. So, that's what moms are for.
That's what moms are for. So this is great. I want to wish you a great Shabbat. And with our closing words, may we know blessings those who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. And may the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.